The Devil's Mine. It was the first day of October, autumn leaves just coming into full bloom. You could still feel summer's warm touch in the breeze. Jody and her friends, Mark and Sarah, had just arrived at a secluded area of the woods near Big Bear Lake, deep in the heart of old West Virginia backcountry, and began setting up camp for the weekend. As they are setting up the tent and unpacking the essentials, Jody says, "We should go gather up some firewood before it gets dark." Sarah and Mark, giggling by the Jeep, are tired of chores after such a long drive. Sarah shuts the back hatch and says, "Aw, let's go for a swim first. It's so nice out." "Yeah, we just got here. Let's have some fun first. Then I swear I'll help gather firewood," said Mark. Jody agrees. "Well, it is a beautiful day." "Yeah, probably the last one we'll have like this for a while," said Sarah. Reluctantly, Jody said, "Okay, go ahead down. I'll get the pile started and meet you in a little while." So as Mark and Sarah chase each other down to the water, Jody heads off into the woods. Jody is a nature lover and is content to walk in the woods alone, soaking up the beautiful day. She hears her friends laughing and splashing in the distance and decides to grab just an armful of wood, then she'll change into her swimsuit. Just then she hears a rustling in the leaves behind her. She turns and sees a hairy creature disappear behind some trees. Must be somebody's dog, she thinks. "Here, boy, are you lost?" she calls out. As she gets closer, she notices that the animal is making kind of a whimpering sound. "Poor boy, are you hurt? Come on out and let me see." Jody steps behind the trees and shrieks as she comes face to face with the creature. Terrified, she realizes she has made a mistake following this thing. Petrified with horror, she stands trembling face to face with the twisted nightmare. The beast sits as tall as her with its legs folded Indian style. Her eyes glance at its bleeding muscular torso up to its hairy long arched neck. She wants to run, but can't. Its face glistening in the sun, it looks like its lips and eyelids were torn off. This hideous thing's lipless maw is frozen in a grotesque smile and its black eyes lock with hers. She realizes that it's not whimpering at all. It's laughing in a thin, hollow cackle. With tears streaming down her face, Jody tries to snap out of it. Lightheaded, she tries to run, but stumbles back a few steps and trips. She hits the ground hard and feels it give way beneath her with a crash. Their eyes lock as she falls into the pit and the demon laughs harder. She hits the bottom with a thud, knocking the air out of her. The sound of the creature's fevered laughter echoes in the dark tomb, suffocating her as she passes out. Meanwhile, time passes at the lake and Sarah and Mark head back up to the campsite. "I hope Jody isn't mad at us for not helping with the firewood," said Sarah. "Nah, she probably got lost chasing some squirrel," laughed Mark. "Don't even joke about that. Now I feel bad and I'm worried too. Thanks, jerk." "Aw, how can I ever make it up to you," jokes Mark. "Tell you what, you go help Jody gather firewood while I make some sandwiches and I'll think about forgiving you." So Sarah climbs into the tent to change and Mark heads off into the woods, still dripping wet. Jody wakes up slowly. Coughing, she feels a dull pain where she landed on her back and remembers where she is. She looks around, but can't see much. The hole she fell through is about 20 feet up and the walls are too slick to climb. She yells for help and winces in pain. She landed on a railroad track when she hit and thinks she must have had a broken rib. She wants to yell again, but the fear that the beast will hear her keeps her lips sealed. She realizes that the tracks must mean that this place is an old coal mine. She's heard ghost stories about old abandoned mine shafts in West Virginia, but quickly tries to put that out of her thoughts for now. Jody feels a cold wind blowing from down the tunnel and decides that it must be a way out, so she brushes herself off and heads into the darkness. The sun is getting lower in the sky and Mark is starting to get a little chilly as he's looking for Jody. Man, where did she go, he thinks to himself. Just then he thinks he hears her shout faintly. He calls out to her, but there is no reply, so he heads off in the general direction of her voice. Finally, he comes across the mine shaft. He notices the broken wood around the hole in the ground and realizes that she must have fallen in. He shouts into the hole, but no reply, so he climbs down after her. Mark gets to the bottom of the pit, but doesn't see Jody anywhere. It's cold down there, and Mark, still wet, is shivering uncontrollably, so he decides to go back to camp and get a jacket and flashlight. Just as he starts to climb out, he hears a low rumbling coming from down the shaft. He climbs back down onto the tracks and yells out, "Hello? Jody, can you hear me?" Just then, from out of the pitch black, a coal cart speeds down the tracks and slams into him. It pins him against the wall and crushes his pelvis and legs. Mark tries to scream, but only manages to gurgle and squeak. Voices in the dark tell him he's not welcome here. His vision is blurry, but in the dark he sees glowing apparitions of old-time coal miners walking toward him. With their gnarled teeth showing and grisly beards dripping in anticipation, they gather around him. "We've waited 100 years for fresh blood," says a hollow, raspy voice. "No more rat carcasses for us," yells another. Mark, now delirious from pain and cold, asks, "Please, help me. Why are you doing this?" The miners raise their pickaxes in their ghostly, bony hands. "We mine souls for the devil now." Mark cries out one last time as the ghost miners tear his upper body apart with their tools. The last light in the sky is just about gone now, and back at camp, Sarah is getting worried. She's beginning to think they must be playing a trick on her. Fine, I'll show them. If they want to scare me, then they can eat dirt. Just as Sarah starts to sprinkle some dirt onto their open sandwiches, she hears Mark scream. "Oh, very funny," Sarah says in a shaky voice, but she knows that didn't sound like he was joking. Sarah tries to decide whether she should go look for her friends when she hears something in the bushes. "Is that you guys?" she asks nervously. There's no reply, but more rustling in the darkness and an eerie giggling. "Come on out. This isn't funny," she yells. Still, no reply, but the rustling leaves and laughing are very close now. Sarah is freaked out, looking around the dark woods trying to figure out which direction the sounds are coming from when suddenly the hideous bloody beast steps out of the darkness just in front of her. Sarah screams and trips over a duffel bag on the ground. The beast laughs and springs forward, grabs a handful of Sarah's hair and drags her screaming into the woods. "No! Please! Where are you taking me?" Sarah screams. The beast chuckles, stops, and holds her up in front of his wretched face. This sends Sarah into a wild, frantic fit. "Let me go!" she screams. Just then, the creature opens his hand and lets her fall down into the bottom of the mine shaft. Sarah's ankle is twisted in the landing and her breath is knocked out of her. She lands just in front of the gory mess that was her boyfriend, Mark, but in the dark cannot see the horrific details and believes the pool of blood at her feet is just water from above. She desperately tries to climb out, but can't, so she too heads down the dark corridor in search of a way out. Jody, still walking towards the origin of the breeze, stumbles and trips over a pile of something on the ground. As she tries to get back to her feet, she feels something odd and round-shaped in the pile of debris. She picks it up and something falls out of it. As she feels it with her fingers, she realizes it is a helmet with a light on it. She shakes the lantern and hears that there is still lamp oil in it, so with her fingers she finds the flint wheel and frantically tries to light the lamp. Then, with a flurry of sparks, the flint catches and the lantern casts a warm glow. The light hurts Jody's eyes at first, but as she opens her eyes back up, she gasps as she scrambles to her feet and realizes that she is sitting in a pile of dusty old skeletons. These must be the old miners. Looks like there must have been a cave-in or something for all the bodies to be piled up here like that, Jody thought. She could tell there wasn't much fluid left in the lamp, so she turned the flame down and continued down the tunnel. Sarah, still terrified, is sobbing as she limps down the tunnel. She can't believe what has happened to her and wonders if this is what has happened to her friends. Just then, she notices a soft orange glow further down the corridor. "Hello?" she calls out. There is no reply, but the glow flickers and moves away down the shaft. Sarah picks up her pace and starts shouting, "Hello! Wait! Jody! Mark! Is that you?" The glow turns a corner and vanishes, but just then Jody calls back, "Sarah? Is that you?" "Yes!" cries Sarah. "Where are you?" I'm right here. You sound close. Just follow my voice. So the girls keep calling out until it sounds like they are right next to each other. Where are you? Cries Sarah. It sounds like you're beside me. Can't you see my light? Replies Jody. No, I can't see anything at all. I'm so scared. I know, me too. Just try to stay calm, said Jody. But Sarah was too freaked out and couldn't take it anymore. Frantic and sobbing, Sarah takes off running down the hall. No, wait, screamed Jody, but it was too late. Sarah had picked up a pretty good pace considering her limp, when with a loud smack she ran right into a wall and falls to the ground. Dazed, she feels an opening at the bottom of the wall and desperately crawls down the narrow corridor. As she crawls, the tunnel is noticeably becoming more and more narrow. Finally, Sarah comes to a point where she can't seem to squeeze any further down the hole. No, no, she yells. She tries to turn around, but can't, so she begins to back out of the tunnel. She only makes it a couple of yards, then cries out a burst of frustration and terror when she realizes the tunnel now closes off behind her as well, trapping her there. Between her uncontrollable sobs and dry heaving, Sarah hears a small sound like the first drops of rain before a storm. Distracted by the sound, she strains to listen closer. She crawls forward as far as she can and realizes that whatever is making the sound is getting closer. Soon, the first scouts and a swarm of beetles come through the opening and stumble across Sarah's hands and arms. More and more pour through the opening, and as she shrieks, hundreds of hungry black beetles flow into her mouth and surround her, filling the tomb. Jody only sits against the black coal wall and listens with horror to the terrible sounds her friend makes as she dies. Jody's thoughts race. Is this what's to come for me? Why is this happening? She thinks as she sits there cold and alone, shaking from shock and fear. Quietly, she begins to pout. God, please, help. When her lamp runs out of oil and the light goes out.